All right. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have Gina Casaza with us. I reviewed all of the things she does, and it took up like a whole paragraph from author to actor to comedian to podcaster to starting her own business, an entrepreneur in every shape and fashion. And then one kind of, plot twist to all this, even did some training with the Navy SEALs. So we're going to talk about all that and more, but I'm really excited to welcome you to the show today, Gina.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Great. Well, my introduction to you does not do you justice. Can you just give us a little background about who you are, what you do, and what's going on in your life?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just like living life. I think that life is meant to be experienced. So if there's something that I'm interested in, I'll just explore it. And I think that that comes with not failing, in terms of not having that fear to fail. I failed in countless things, business, life, but it's just not having that fear to fail. So when I was at a comedy show watching a friend, I literally looked at my friends on the drive home and I was like, I'm going to do that. In give me 4 weeks, I'm going to be up on that stage. And they just laughed at me. And in 4 weeks, I actually was on that stage.
Wow.
And that's the thing. It's like, okay, like I see it, I'm interested in it, and I go full force in it. And sometimes it's a blessing and the curse because sometimes I did have a failed business, and I don't think it was a failed business because without that I wouldn't have what I have now. So really it was like a stepping stone to this new piece of growth. But I invested a lot of time, energy, and a lot of money into a business that I thought was a sure thing. And the biggest lesson I learned was nothing in life is a sure thing.
Yeah,
And and the thing was is I should have stepped back a little bit, did what are they called? The focus groups, and did like a little marketing research and did a couple of things like that before going big right away. And sometimes I do things like that where I just go big right away and I have to really like scale it down to start small and then move forward. So, when it comes to being a children's author, I went out and I bought 1,000 books right away. And to me, I was like, it's just 1,000 books. But I didn't realize like that's actually a lot of books. Like I just thought we were gonna like sell millions of copies right away. I kind of have that delusional confidence, but the thing was is that it did force me to market better, and understand, okay, like, so this isn't working, let me try this. And this isn't working, let me try this. Oh, this is working right now, let me go straight into this. Now it's not working, let me move in this direction. And it's just always a constant pivot. And as an entrepreneur and someone that does a bunch of different things, the one thing you have to understand is that it's never linear, number one. And number two, it's always constant. Like with my book, I'm always going to be marketing until I pass on. And and I said that it's funny that we're saying this because I said this to myself this morning. I was like, why does Coca-Cola still advertise? Like, do they really need to advertise? And then I'm realizing though, it's like, because if they stopped advertising, then they become obsolete, even though that they are Coca-Cola. It's like, well, then there's another generation that you're going to want to influence and impact, right? Because the kids are going to become the buyers, right? And it just, that's how it goes. So I realized that this morning. I like said to myself, like, why do they advertise? And then I realized, and it hit me why. And I'm like, oh, I guess I never am able to stop advertising with my own
Yeah.
stuff,
No, that's the case.
It's a never-ending journey.
No, for sure. No, I mean it's true. I mean, for a lot of and speaking from a veteran point of view, which I know you've worked within folks in the military, you've talked to them, podcast with them, especially like the special forces side of the house, which we'll talk about later. One of the biggest fears I think a lot of us have as we transition out of the military, where you have a safe check every month, you're going to get paid, you have the health care, you have the housing allowance, you have all these things, you have the military to take care of you, even when things you do struggle, right? You have that kind of like a safety net of people to support you. As an entrepreneur, it's you, right? Like you're advertising your own book, you're learning how to write it and publish it, you're going through how to start a business, LLCs, and all the the tax information, and that's scary.
Yeah.
But like you said, like this is a this is a journey where it's not all linear, right? Like sometimes you jump right in and you're going all in, and then you're like, well, maybe I should have slowed down and learned more about the tax codes for Kentucky or for wherever. But no, I think that's amazing. So when did you start your podcast?
Recently, it's pretty new, my podcast. I started it in February of 2024. Yeah, just this year. Yeah. But I batched content. So like I interviewed a bunch of guests like November, December. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then I like put it out there and I'm like, all right. And then I was like, all right, and now I gave them a date. I'm like, it's gonna be premiering this time. So I knew like I had to put it out there. But the thing is, I started the podcast because I was starting to write my new book. It's a memoir called Training with a SEAL. And since my children's book was inspired by Training with a SEAL and the lessons that I learned, the biggest lesson I learned there about belonging, I wrote this children's book. Now I speak all over the US, and it always dives into the Navy SEAL story, which people are super intrigued by. So I was like, let me just write the book. So I started the podcast in marketing of the book, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. It's just become so much bigger. And I think that's something that's really cool. It's like I always tell people, like, always have that vision of like where you want to see things in the next 3 to 5 years or the next year or so for yourself, and what are your goals. Like, I know the vision of the podcast, where I want it to go, what's going to happen to it in the next 1, 3, 5 years. However, I'm also moving in that direction, and also understanding that things take a lot longer than my delusional confidence in life. So, it's just, but it's also like just having fun with it. I get to meet the most amazing people, and every single guest that I have, because all my guests are special forces, I feel super inspired by them. What they give me and the lessons that they give, I take on. So I always ask that same question at the very end, like, what can we do every single day to build our mindset, to tap into our untapped potential? Because I really do believe a lot of us wake up, go to work, come home, eat, go to sleep, and that's it. And that's our life. And I feel like we don't hit those potentials. Like, I can't even tell you how many people have come to me and been like, oh, I want to write a children's book, or I want to start a podcast. Like, what'd you do? And I go, I just did it. Like, they're like, but how did you do it? And I go, I don't know. I just researched, and I just like made a lot of mistakes, and I moved forward. So I just so the thing is, like, with my guests, they all say what to do, like to build up that mindset, to tap into that untapped potential. And then I go out into the field and I do it for a week. And I challenge my listeners and my followers to do it too. And then at the end of the week, I do a recap of it, and I share my experiences. And then I ask others to share with me how their journey went, because it's all about lifting each other up to tap into that untapped potential, and to not, like you said in the beginning of the show, like we have these fears of when that security is ripped from under us. And these little challenges that my listeners and followers do each week strengthen you to build that confidence to take those steps to succeed in this new venture of your life without too much fear. Fear is always going to be there. It's just inevitable. You're going to get I always tell people, if you're not terrified, it's not big enough,
Right.
So you really got to understand your emotions and run with it, not away from it.
That's great. And before because I really want to hear about the Navy SEALs part, and what drove you to that. But you said something that, I think I've felt in my life too. When you take something on, and like you said, when you told your friends you're going to be on that stage doing comedy, what has it been like for you? Because you're doing all these things, you're doing all these amazing things. What has been the feedback from like friends and family? Are they at this point, are they used to it, or are they still like, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Like, what's going on?
It's a little bit of both. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, how do you do it all? And it's like, well, it's just me right now in my life. So I feel like there's no other obligation that I have besides taking care of me. So that makes it a bit easier. But there are some times where, like I said, like I'm starting a podcast, like I said to people, like, a couple months ago, and then it's like, oh, I'm writing a new book, and it's like, well, when is it enough? And I'm like, when I'm dead, like that's the thing. It's like, because there's so much out there in life to experience, and you get such a small amount of time on this earth. Why not go for it and just experience it all? And it's okay if it fails. And what is failure anyway? And I was talking to this to one of my guests yesterday when I was interviewing him, and I said, failure is different for everybody. So what you might consider a failure, like for me, that business that I had that went under, I didn't consider that a failure. I considered it a lesson. Like, yeah, the business completely failed in terms of not making any money, but it succeeded in teaching me the lessons I needed to learn to build a successful business, to have now a successful business. So, failure is however you define it.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. And I also love that you said that you, after each one of your podcasts where you learn a lesson from one of your guests, you apply that. I had a recent guest who was like, hey, it's really cool reading all these books about leadership, and people can sit there and tell you all these great quotes, and they can quote, whoever, Simon Sinek, or you name the leadership book, but then like they don't practice it. And so I think it's awesome that you're not only, putting that knowledge out there, but then you're applying it and then sharing it with your audience as well, so they can, take some of that, that same approach that you're giving, where you're being active in those and in those lessons, and not just like putting it out into the air. And it's like, okay, great. Fantastic.
I think it's really important to be the person that you're portraying to the world, or like that, like if my mission is to inspire others to be their best selves and to tap into the untapped potential. Well, it's a little bit ridiculous if I'm at home watching TV and not doing it myself. So, and really, like, as you start, like, I'm sure like when you first start your podcast, your listeners are the number is a lot lower than what it is each week. It grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. And when you start, I think one of the biggest challenges, at least for me, that I could really talk about is when you start, again, because I have that delusional confidence, you have to get rid of that and get rid of expectations. You can't just be like, I'm going to put out an episode and millions of people are going to listen to it. That's just delusional. And sometimes I have that, and I have to be like, you have expectations. All expectations have to go out the window. We just have to have fun with this, and also realize, like, okay, I'm putting out these mindset challenges. Like, there's a chance I'm the only one that's doing this. There's a chance that I'm the only one that's even seeing this. Some people are probably like watching it for 3 seconds and are like, goodbye, but the thing is, it's not for you. I'm doing this to inspire people, to hopefully, for whoever it's for, to watch it and then participate in it. But also, I'm doing this for me to better myself. So that's the thing, is like, what are you doing it for, and what's your purpose? Because if you're doing it for you, then it's going to make this so much more fun, enjoyable, and the people are going to come to you. But if you're doing it for the views, the likes, the follows, the money, and I do think you do need to think about the money, because we have to put food on the table, we have to eat, like, and survive. But you also have to kind of get rid of all emotions, which gets rid of all expectations and just allows you to participate in your journey, your success.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I think so. I think I would say kind of a unique job at, as I transition out of the Army, where I do the assignments for Army doctors all around the world, right? And so I've been doing this for a number of years now. So kind of like their career manager, I talk to them, get to know them, their families, and then assignments, the good and bad assignments, right? And after I started my leave and transition, I was like having withdrawal from like not talking to people. So when they were like, "Why are you doing a podcast?" I was like, "Well, there's something I want to get out there, and it's what we talked about earlier about the positivity, put more positive news in the world, and highlight great people." But man, I was having withdrawal, like just not talking to people. So like, like you said, money's important, but for me, I was talking to people from a different, wider range than just the military. And I was learning so much, whether it's about Bitcoin, about business, I could go on forever. Leadership lessons from like high CEO level folks that it's like, wow, this is fantastic. And I feel like I'm gaining more out of that. But again, no one cares about me. Please talk to me about your Navy SEAL training experience and what got you to do that and how that all went about.
Yeah, sure. To tail end on what you just said, I think that's the reason why a lot of people start podcasts. It's been successful for me. It's just building that connection and then feeding off of each other, because you just never know who you're going to meet. That's then going to put you in this, give you a different role in life, and that's what happened with this Navy SEAL thing. What happened was I was living in LA at the time, and it was January. It was beginning 2021. And my mom was visiting and staying with me for a little bit. And the news was just it's always toxic, but it's felt like extra toxic. And this environment that I was living in, I lived in a very nice area, but the crime was on the rise. It just was feeling super unsafe to go anywhere. And I was just like, it just dawned on me like this, like I was like, looked at my mom and I'm like, you think I could survive a kidnapping? And she was like, no. And I was like, what? And she like, look at you, like, no. And I was like, there gotta be like a school, like there has to be like a like women's self-defense they do on the weekends or something like that. Like, there has to be like a kidnapping self-defense, like something, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason, like I think it was the TV show White Collar, this is how TV really can dilute your reality too.
Right.
I think I was watching a show, I think it was White Collar, and this woman was putting groceries in her trunk, and this guy came up behind her and grabbed her, and the main character like went to jump in on the show to be like to stop what was going on, and they're like, no, this is practice for like, this was like a class thing. It was like no one was really being kidnapped, So I, for some reason, was like, that's brilliant. Like, that's a brilliant idea. Like, I like give a company, a reputable company, like my information, and like they do that. Like they at one point like stalk me and like come up from behind me and try, and then we assess what's going on. Then they do it a second time to see how you improve or something. I don't know. That's just how I saw it. So I was like, I'm Googling it. I'm trying to like find something. And then I came across a survival school, and they had a civilian SEER program. Are you familiar with SEER?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I was not total civilian. And I just saw the word kidnapping, and I was like, oh, I think this is what I'm looking for. And so I called them, and they just like he briefly like explained what it was. And I was like, you know what? Sign me up. I sign up that moment.
Wow.
And then I look into it further, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like if the Taliban was to kidnap me. Like, this is not like your normal everyday kidnapping. And I found out I was not only going to be kidnapped, I was going to be tortured for a couple of hours. At some point, you escape, and then you get hunted in the woods all night. And I'm like, my family's never camped a day in their life. Like, what do you mean? I'm not going to make it. Like, I'm scared of the dark. I'm scared of anything that moves. I get cold very easily. Like, this is not for me. So I just finished reading the book Living with a SEAL by Jesse Itzler. And so I had in my mind like a Navy SEAL, because when I was reading the book, I was like doing push-ups and sit-ups, and like, that's just not me. Like, no. I grew up athletic, but like I hated the practice. And so like I avoid the gym at all costs. Like, I just thought at that point in my life that if I just ate good, that's enough,
Right.
So anything to avoid like the gym. So I was like, I gotta find a Navy SEAL. So I was Googling, asking people that were in the service, like couldn't find anything. I don't know why I didn't think about LinkedIn. I don't know. And I found this company called Team Eagle One, is a nonprofit run by Navy SEAL John McLaren. And I reached out, and I didn't really want this. I didn't want like a group thing. I wanted a one-on-one, you know? And so I reached out. It was all I could find. And I was like, listen, I just paid to get kidnapped. Like, I know that your thing is for the special forces, like to go through buds, but I just give me one day. Like, I just need to see if I don't quit. And he was like, if you're crazy enough to pay to get kidnapped, like, come on down. And I was like, okay, I'm in. So I went to his program, and I see the guys, and they're like real G.I. Joe action figures in the flesh. Like, I've never seen like this in my life. And I just like turned around. I was like, no, this is not for me. Like, no, I'm done. I just so your listeners can really paint this picture. Aside from being a female, at the time I was under 100 pounds, and I'm 5 feet tall. So very small, very petite, more on the what I say for myself, because I really didn't have any muscle, on the weaker side. And so I see these guys who are just like Spartan warriors, and I was just like, I'm done. Like, no way, can't do it.
There's 300 out there.
Yeah, that's what it was like. I really felt like I was like in 300, and like the female that they were expecting to be there was like, you know, whatever her name, like Wonder Woman. And then, you know, I show up, you know, like Ant Girl. And so like I walked back to my car, and I was like, no, I don't need this. Like, it's fine. And then like I called my uncle, who's a Marine, and I was like, I was just like, needed like some pep talk, get me back in there. And then I did. I turned around. I was like, it's just a couple of hours, like get through it. I said hello, and they welcomed me, and then training started. And I wanted to quit 7 times in the first minute. Like, it was miserable. It was not, oh my God. Like, the first thing we had to do was that after push-ups, we had to go for this run. And it was like a mile long in the sand. And it was the soft sand. So, you know, soft sand running is a different beast compared to you know, running. Oh my gosh. And like, there was a point where like it was hard sand, but majority of it was soft sand, and I didn't realize. And here I am thinking I'm going very fast, and then you're realizing like you're barely moving, like in soft sand, like you barely go anywhere. But these guys are like practice, like they're efficient, like they're like they like had rockets on their shoes. I missed that memo, and then I did the whole entire training. I got through. I didn't quit. I wanted to. I didn't. And he said something at the very end of training that ended up changing the trajectory of my life. And he said, if you think day 1 is hard, try day 2, because your mind is going to give you every logical excuse not to show up again. Yeah. And that hit me because everyone's always told the first day is the hardest day. And that's obviously not true when you're looking at brain chemistry and stuff like that. Like, the second day is really hard because it's your brain is jobs to keep you safe. And that was so unsafe because it was so painful, right? So my brain was like, don't come back. It was trying to do everything not to get me to go back. So I asked him at the end of training, I said, can I come back for day 2? Because, you know, you said day 1 is hard, but day 2 is harder. And I need to make sure I don't quit. And he was like, yeah, come on to day 2. And then next thing you know, I end up joining this program. And for everyone out there that's like, well, yeah, he let you join because he wanted your money. No, it was a nonprofit, so it was completely free. So I just like to throw that out there because he didn't have to do this for me. This was very kind of him. And these guys are training to be in special forces. Like, there was like me and like another civilian like there. But yeah, so that was that. And that's how I ended up like training with a SEAL. And I spent a month with the team training before I went to SEER. And then I came back and I stayed with them for another month before I moved. I ended up leaving the state. But yeah, that was it. And that changed the trajectory of my life because it's just interesting on how, like I said, I'm a little bit impulsive. I said that at the very beginning, where like I act upon my thoughts. So this thought came in my head, like, could I survive a kidnapping? And like, there was that one thought, and then the response led me to go, I got to find a kidnapping, which then led to finding this school, which then was like, oh my God, like, this is not what I expected. Let me find a Navy SEAL, which then led to this program, which then led to my book, which then led to speakings, which then led to the podcast, which led to me writing my next book. And it just kind of snowballed. But if you would have asked me prior to that one thought, like, if you would have asked me a minute prior to that thought that popped in, could I survive a kidnapping? If I would see myself being an author, being a podcaster, like any of this stuff, I'd be like, no. Like at the time, I was like just in film, and that was it. And then it was just like, whole different ball game.
So was your resilient, like you mentioned that one moment kind of set the course for you. Have you always been that resilient? I know you said you've been, impulsive, and even when you went there the first time, I want to leave.
Yeah.
Talk about like, at some point the pep talks, don't do any good. It's got to come from inside, right? So how did you develop that resiliency that got you through that? And then, I'm sure there's things you can't even talk about with a SEER program because they kind of keep it kind of quiet. I think a lot of times. I could be wrong on the civilian side.
This is very different than what Special Forces actually goes through. This is a civilian program. So like, I think with the Special Forces, like, I think it's like 7 days. Some of them are I think are longer, but I know it's like, they do a training course and all that stuff, but like, I think they were like, it's like a 7-day like capture, whereas mine was, thank God, a day, but yeah, so it's very different, but at the same time, it has those similarities in terms of getting captured, what to do in that situation, pushing you to that breaking point of being tortured and all that stuff, to then escaping and having that opportunity to not get captured again, and navigate and survive and make it through that night, and then wake up in confidence, okay, like I got a little taste of it. However, I like to tell everybody, and it's the same thing. You could take what I'm about to say and put it in your life, is that what happened to me and in that SEER program, I like 99.9% would not be able to replicate it. Like, so if I was to go through that again, there's a chance, because what happened to me, I ended up escaping. I actually didn't even get kidnapped. So, I mean, that was just God. I mean, man, that was just magic. So that I don't think I'd be able to replicate. Like, could I not get captured, and be tortured, and all. I abandoned my team. It was a whole thing. Like, there was like an opportunity for me to leave through my Navy SEAL training. He talks about transitioning, and transitioning, again, this is a lesson that everything that I learned became lessons that I applied and understood more in civilian life. You transition from the military into civilian life. You transition from, like, for one career to the next career. You transition from being single to being in a relationship. All these things are transitions that we don't think about, right? And so when I was in SEER, he talked about transition a lot. So all he talked about. And he was always like, situational awareness, know what's going on. So I normally don't do that. I'm normally like, tell me what to do. My head is down and I'm doing it, right? Whereas what he was like is, you do what they say, but you pay attention to everything that's going on around you. And so I did that, and there happened to be a small opening for me. It's just for my size. And so I took that opportunity and I ran for it, and I made it through. They didn't grab me. And then I had to survive throughout the night. But I don't think I could replicate that, like that was just like, oh my goodness, and the thing is like, and I tell people, like, when you're looking at your life and your business, like, and how things are going and the road that it's going on, don't compare to everybody else. I always have to remind myself with my podcast, like, I'm not Sean Ryan, like, no, I'm not, it's a totally different ball game. However, I know his listeners are very similar to the types of listeners that are interested in my podcast. However, I could model off of that, but I have to be my own person and forge my own path. And it's the same thing with life and in business. And that's what I've learned a lot through this, because it's like, yeah, I did all this, but it just happened to be because I acted upon something that took me on a different path, and I allowed myself to follow that path. Sometimes we stop ourselves, we hit a roadblock, we don't want to go in that direction, we get scared, and it's just like, we don't go all the way to see where that's going to take us. And I'm a curious person. I want to know where this is going to take me. I want to know if I can make a career out of it, all this stuff. So I think that's always been something that has been in me since childhood. I remember my parents were really amazing. They really let me explore and be myself. And that allowed me to fail. And without they did a really good job of giving me the guidance and the tools and advice, but then they wouldn't remove the obstacle. They wouldn't make me, like, I was a very shy kid, which people find really funny that I became a stand-up comic, because I was the kid that didn't speak in school.
Yeah.
So like when someone invited me to their birthday party, I was like 5, and I wasn't able to go, my mom would be like, you gotta call and let them know you can't make it, because we have this going on. And I'm like, well, can't you call? And she's like, I wasn't invited to the party, you were. I'm like, everybody else's parents call. And she's like, I don't care what everyone else's parents do, like, this is what we're doing.
Right.
So, and then as a child, like, I wanted to be the first female Major League Baseball player. I was 8. And so I wrote to the president. I joined Baseball Little League. I did all these things to take those necessary steps. I wanted to be archaeologist, and I dig in the backyard for hours, like trying to find bones or something like that. Like, I wanted to become a singer. I was 12, and I wanted to be like the next Christina Aguilera or Britney Spears, during that time.
Yeah.
So I looked at what they did, and they were in church choir and all this other stuff. So I joined a church choir, and then they made music videos and stuff. So I made a music video, and then I sent it out to Virgin and Atlantic, and my parents went to go give me voice lessons. I couldn't carry a tune, like a terrible voice, but they didn't say that. They were just like, here you go. Like, you want the voice lessons? Here you go. Like, I was very fortunate in that aspect. Like, I made a music video. My grandpa was an editor, so he edited music video for me. I made the tape, and I handed my mom like a stack of 10 envelopes. I think I was between 12 and 14 years old. And I said, can you mail these out for me? Like, they're ready, they're labeled and everything like that to go. And she's looking at it like, Virgin, but I went to go and see Joey Fatone on Broadway when he was Rent. And I brought my demo tape and I handed it to him. I was like, I'm going to get the phone call, like, I did whatever I could to like see what happens in life, and everything. Like, people could say, well, none of it worked out. And it's like, but it built up my resilience. It built up my mental toughness. It built up my fear of failure and all that other stuff that, we tend to, we don't have that resistance to, especially if we didn't develop it in childhood.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's trying to raise my kids. I mean, I have 3 daughters, and I want to protect them and like never have them face a difficult moment. But I know that's not the right way to do things, right? Have them be challenged, have them do things, have them get out there and face their fears and build resiliency. And so everything you just said, like, really hit home. And it's like, I think it's important. If you don't face adversity, what do you do when you face it the first time as an adult?
You crumble. I've seen it. Like, I had a friend of mine, like, silver spoon kid, everything was handed, golden child, and then all of a sudden, like, you become an adult and you get that little bit of criticism, you get let go from the job, all these other things that you've never handled as a child because life has been very different, and you just crumble, and you have to learn how to build yourself up. And I think that if you can do it in childhood, you're a step up in the game, especially these days when everybody wants to give everyone a trophy. We live in that time period where competition is bad. I was a coach and my cousin's softball. I would be like climbing fences. I was like when the ball was hit and they're in the field, and I'd be like jumping on things, grab that. I was getting I'd get so into it, and everyone's like, it's just a game. I'm like, it's not just a game. Like, it's never just a game. Like, it's more than that, because what you're doing is you're building character, number one, and you're building skill sets. And the moment you say that it is just a game, you are building a skill set in them that we can stay lazy, that we can be average, that we don't have to strive and participate and do hard things and challenge ourselves. You are just reinforcing that. And we as parents don't see that as a bad thing, because we're like, oh, everyone needs to feel included and everyone needs to be equal. And that's just not reality. Like, nepotism is here. Like, it's not going anywhere. It's been here since birth. Like, all these things, and you need to learn how to navigate that. Like, you need to know what it's like to be on a team with the coach's son who might be getting everything, or maybe you don't realize, but being the coach's son is actually 10 times worse than not being the coach's son. So there's like all these things and levels that you need to learn how to navigate and build skill sets as a child. And as a parent, if you are that parent that's a participation trophy parent, you are building skill sets for your child that is only going to give them the best way to say, like, a leg down when they become an adult. So build them up now as a child. Throw them in the ring, let them get knocked down here and there, and watch how they come back, because they're very resilient if you give them the room to prove that to you.
Right. Yeah. I don't know where I saw it, but I saw there was a picture that said like top 5 things employers are seeing with like recent grads at interviews, and like 20% of the grads are bringing their parents to their first interview, which I can't confirm or deny if that's true or not. I'm just going off what was on the news, but I thought that was kind of interesting, and it really speaks to what you just said.
I mean, but I can understand, again, like your point that you said earlier, like protecting the children. It's like, I have kids and I want to protect them, right? I don't have children. I have a nephew. Let me tell you something. It's the first time where I was like, I would die for this child. Like, I want to protect him. I want him to have the world. I want to see him succeed. But I also know that he has to go through adversity in order to get there. The hero in every single journey has many, many obstacles. Like, the hero does not have an easy path, and the hero does not crumble. And it's okay. The thing is like, it's okay to step back. Like, when you hit a wall and you're frustrated or something like that, it's okay to step back and assess and evaluate, but it's not okay to quit. And, in Navy SEAL training, I cried a couple of times. Like, I cried. And, and everyone's like, you know what? It's totally okay to cry. It's not okay to quit. And that's the difference, just being able to feel the pain, feel the emotion, and just push through it.
That's awesome. And so when you speak of obstacles, a lot of people may have financial obstacles. They may have, maybe not a great set of parents. Maybe they live in a unique area where they don't have some of the advantages some others might have. You had a unique obstacle. You lost your hearing at 21 in one of your ears. And so talk about a hurdle that's not really expected. What happened? I
don't think something that's life altering, I don't think is ever expected. It was just random. I was 21. I was in California at the time, not living there. I was visiting. And I was at Cheesecake Factory with some friends, stood up after dinner. It was around 7:15 at night. And next thing you know, like, there's a giant ringing in my ear. Like when you leave a concert and your ear starts to ring because so loud. That's what happened. And the next day, and I asked everyone, I'm like, you guys hear that ringing? They were like, no. And I was like, oh my God, it's so loud. And then I fell asleep. The next day, we were all going to go on a hike. which we did still go on, but I woke up and everything was, I had really bad vertigo. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I don't know what's going on. Still have this ringing in my ear. Now I got this vertigo, and I ended up going to the hospital, and they're like, you just have fluid in your ear. So they gave me a nasal spray because they were like, it's not going to work. Because I did get some stuff for swimmer's ear because like a couple of days prior to this, I was in Argentina. I was doing a study abroad thing, and I was swimming in the ocean, and I was like, I feel like I got swimmer's ear coming on. So when this happened, I just thought it was the swimmer's ear that I thought a couple of days ago. And they were like, no, the fluid's on the other side. You got to get rid of it through a nasal spray. Here you go. So I did that, and I had this I still have an amazing doctor on Long Island, Dr. Harvey Miller, incredible guy. He calls me. He was like, hey, what's going on? Like, how are you? Like, just randomly, like he was with me on the phone in Argentina. I had bronchitis like 2 weeks prior to that. And he like walked me through everything. So he called me and was like checking in, seeing how you're doing. Are you back in the States? When can I see you? And I'm like, yeah, but I got this thing with my ear. It's like ringing really loud. But I went to the hospital, and he was like, go to an ENT, cancel your flight, because I was supposed to fly out that day. So I cancel my flight. I go to an ENT, and they do the hearing test, and they walk into the room after I finish with the box of tissues. And I was like, oh my God. Now, prior to that, I did say to my friend, I was like, something's not right. Like, I think they're going to tell me I'm deaf or something. And he was like, what? No. And I was like, I don't know. Something just doesn't feel right. And then when I went in to take the test, and they walked in with the box of tissues, like that kind of confirmed it. And then they told me like I lost all my hearing, 100% gone. And I was like, well, how do I get back? And they're like, we're going to put you on steroids and see. You have like a week to see if it's going to come back. Aside from that, that's it. And I was like, that's not it. I was like, miracles happen every day. What are you talking about? Like, there has to be another way. And that's the thing. Like, for myself, I just am not going to take a no, until I exhausted all options. And so I was like, all right, I'll do whatever you say. Like, I'll take the steroids, I'll, whatever. And then I'll retake tests, the hearing test. And if it doesn't improve, I'm just going to keep on going. Like, that's just me. So I did that. I flew back to New York the next day, and I spent the weekend crying. And I said, you got a weekend. I go, you get a weekend to cry, like 2 days. That's it. Monday morning is game on. We're going to work. And I went to work for 10 years, and I regained hearing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went to work. Yeah. And I regained my hearing, not 100%. They actually say there's no such thing as a percentage in terms of like whatever, but if they have to make it, easy for me to digest, they would say 80, they would give it a number. They'd say 85%. So I reversed my hearing loss.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You don't hear that every day. No pun intended, but
no, funny.
Wow. So you've built yourself quite a unique career. You've built up quite a bit of resilience. You've are really an awesome storyteller, comedian, author. Takes on challenges, whatever they may be, not afraid to say no. What are some future projects that you can share? Because I know sometimes I'm going to keep some things in the wrap, surprise some people. But is there anything going on? I know you're working on your podcast still, continuing to grow that, but is there anything you can talk about that you have coming up in the next few years or months even?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a planner. I don't know anyone out there that's not, I can't relate. I am like, if you go on a trip with me, like you get an itinerary of the trip. And the thing is like, I am totally cool with, and I have many different plans. Like if it doesn't go this way, if this doesn't go this way, like if this restaurant's closed, like here, we're gonna, here we go. And, in the military, they call it PACE. The primary all the way up into emergency. So like that's my life. And the thing is like I like to plan it because if something spontaneous comes up, like me having this idea and then going to Navy SEAL training, like I can then go do that and then get back on course for the plan. Or this plan takes me somewhere else and I readjust the whole entire plan. But I always like to have a plan and a direction to move me forward. So for myself, I have many different things going on. I'm really like, I really believe it. I forget the saying, but it's like jack of all trades, master of none. Something's better than one. Like having all of these things is actually better than just one mastery. And again, for me, it's like, it's about experiencing life. So the podcast I started, Mindset Lessons from the Field, is all based off of, I started it for my book, Training with a SEAL. So right now I'm spending the summer writing and getting this book completed and done. And while I'm doing that, I'm doing this podcast. Now, I had no idea this podcast is now a business. Like, it's so fun. Like I'm like, I don't know if it's ever going to end. So for me, I ask all my guests the same question at the end. How can we tap into our untapped potential and hit that mind, that, that mental toughness? So I'm turning all those answers into a book. So each year I'll have a new book coming out, Lessons from the Field, episodes 1 through this, episodes this through this, and having all my guests in a book. So that actually came out of that, because again, and I like your listeners and everything, you can make money doing anything. Okay. So anything you can make money doing. And, yes, this is so much fun, but again, you got to put food on the table. So for me, the book is a really cool idea, and I like writing. So I'm moving towards doing that book, doing my Training with the SEAL memoir. I got a new children's book that I am writing and getting out there. So my children's book that I have out now, You Really Truly Do Belong, follows an alien and the journey of understanding belonging. And now it's going to be the same character, the alien. It's kind of like now a series, and it's going to be called You Really Truly Are Enough. And the alien learns all the things about being enough, good enough, cute enough, smart enough, all those things. So that I'm writing right now and doing. And I also create these animations on YouTube on my You Really Truly Do Belong channel. And it's fun. Like, I've always loved animation. I took a class in college. I cried through it. I can't even believe I got a C. I mean, like, I'll never forget when I was in class. No one understands how I got into this class, because apparently there was a prerequisite that I had to get in. And I remember we had to do an exercise, and I made a car, which wasn't it wasn't a car like you're thinking. It was like a square with 4 circles on it, okay, with another square on top. So it wasn't like, it just, you can see and be like, that's a car, it was like a Picasso car, not like a, like,
exactly.
a Michelangelo.
Exactly.
So all I did was make the car move down the road just in one direction, right? I was so proud of this. I don't even know how I did it. I got the car to move down the road through this animation that I made, right? And we're presenting. And I remember the first presentation that went up, and my jaw hit the floor. And I was like, how did I end up in this class? I am watching a mini Toy Story. And I'm just like, oh my God, these guys are animators. Like, here I am excited for my square and circle to move down the road, and these guys just created Toy Story. I was like mortified. But now I kind of like, when I have some free time, and I don't watch TV. So it's like, I just kind of, like, whenever I have free time, besides reading, I love reading. I do these animations. So it's my alien friend from the book learning about the different animals for pre-K and kindergarten. So I create those and make those. That's what I was working on actually prior to this. The podcast, the new children's book. I do speaking events now. So I do like 25 to 50 schools a year. And since it's summertime, I'm going to now transition to corporations and, events and conferences and stuff like that for speaking. So I'm just making that transition. And I still work in the film business. I have a TV series that we are getting ready to pitch. I work with a production company out in Los Angeles. We're just moving. They do movies, and we're breaking into TV with one of my shows, which I'm really excited about. And I am taking the podcast and the memoir and my story and turning it into a scripted TV series. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So we got a lot going on. Like I said, I have the plan for the next 5 years on where we're going, but you never know where else it's going to take me. I'm just having fun with it all, and that's the thing
Yeah.
I tell everybody that's listening. Like, if you have an idea, have fun, see it through.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's probably one of the coolest things, answers I've gotten to that question. Uh, Usually it's like I'm trying to figure some things out, but that's a planner. And as in an army, we kind of joke like there was that movie where Chris Pine says, "I'm a planner. I make plans." A lot of us are the same way. We not sure how we're gonna do, but we get there and the branches and sequels and how we're gonna do things. And so
Yeah.
that answer was fantastic. Gina, this has been probably one of my best conversations I've had on here, and yeah, this has been a blast.
I'm glad. Sometimes I overtalk. I'm like, Gina, reel it in.
No, like I started this off. No one's here to listen to me. They're here to listen to you. And
no, but you say some great things. You really are. You can relate to a lot that I'm saying. So your input and your outtake on it is, I think, is important for all the listeners, because each one of us has a different story. Each one of us has a different path, and I can't understand what it's like to be anybody else but me. And that's my only job in this life, is to be me. And I like listening to other people to hear them, but I can't understand you like as you. I can only listen to have that empathy, but I can never be in your shoes. Like, I never understand when people are like, "Oh, put yourself in their shoes." I'm like, but I'm not in their shoes. I don't know what it's like if I lost a child, or did or lost an arm or anything like that. But I can tell you what it was like for me to lose my hearing, but I can't tell you what it's like for that person to lose their hearing. It's just, we all have different things. And it's just the way you come across as an interviewer is just, you make the job easy for someone like me to come on and talk to your listeners.
Well, thank you for the kind words. But I've taken up a lot of your time, and I know, like we talked about, one of the biggest things, especially for an entrepreneur who's got so many things going on, one of your most valuable resources is your time. So the last question I really have is, do you have anything that you would like to leave our listeners with, on any topic, resiliency, just entrepreneurship, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
I guess what I would say is, it'd be a question to your listeners, really. And it would say, if you were at the last day of your life right now, is there anything that you didn't do or didn't get to experience that you've always wanted to do, right? Is there anything that you look back on wishing that you've done, if today was your last day on earth? And whatever that is, take the steps towards it when you wake up in the morning, or right now, right this very moment, because your life is short and your life means something. But you need to give it a purpose, and you need to fulfill that purpose with a passion. So right now, today, if this was your last day on earth, what is something that you wish you could have done, and then go and do it?
Awesome. I expected nothing less than an awesome question like that. So thank you, Gina. Thank you for being on. And I'll be sure to put all of your links into the description. Obviously your podcast, your books, everything that you got going on. So if anyone wants to listen to your show, which I'm sure after this discussion they will. So thank you so much.
Thank you.